This page intentionally blank. Administrative Agency, Carver County Sheriff's. Report number 4 entered, April 22, 2016, 10:19 by Officer, 864 J.H. Horvath, James. Incident hashtag, 2016000125559. Carver County Sheriff's Office. Follow-up report. ICR, 160125559. Date of this report, April 22, 2016. Details. 1 On April 21, 2016 at 0945 hours, I was dispatched to a medical at 7801 Audubon Road in the city of Chanhassen, Paisley Park. Dispatch advised it was reported an adult male was down and believed to not be breathing. 2 Deputy Hastings and I arrived on scene at 0948 hours along with Chanhassen Fire Chief Johnson and Ridgeview paramedics. I entered the front door of Paisley Park with my medical bag and was directed to where the adult male was down. I observed there were 3 people inside the main entry door/lobby area as I entered. 3 I walked down the hallway from the front door and to my right I observed a male party down on the floor, directly in front of the elevator. I later learned the male party was actually inside the elevator and was pulled out by Chanhassen Fire Chief Johnson. The male party was later identified as Prince Rogers Nelson. 4 I observed Prince was lying on the floor on his back directly in front of the elevator. Chanhassen Fire Chief Johnson advised that Prince was still warm and began resuscitation efforts. I observed Chief Johnson begin chest compression, so I got my AED ready from my medical bag. I handed my AED and pads to Deputy Hastings as he was closer to Prince than I was. Additional Chanhassen rescue personnel arrived on scene at this time, so I allowed them to take over my spot, allowing me to speak to the 3 people in the front lobby area. 5 The 3 people in the front lobby area were identified as Andrew Battison Kornfeld, Kirk Anthony Johnson, and Marone N.M. Becker. I proceeded to activate my digital recorder and spoke to Kirk about the incident. I was informed that Kirk is an employee of Prince's and handles most of his daily affairs. The following is a summary of our conversation. 6 Kirk told me about recently having to make an airplane perform an emergency landing due to Prince blacking out in flight. Kirk said Prince was rushed to the local hospital but refused to submit to a blood test while he was there to find out what was wrong. Kirk said he told Prince that he needed to take him to the doctor then when they got home so they could get checked out. 7 Kirk said he took Prince to a doctor's appointment at North Memorial Clinic at 1700 hours yesterday, April 20, 2016. Kirk said he could tell Prince was going through withdrawal symptoms as he was driving him home from the doctor. Kirk believed the withdrawal symptoms were from prescription medications, but did not know what prescriptions Prince was taking. Kirk also did not know how long Prince has been using prescription drugs but suspected it to be a long time. Kirk specifically told me that Prince refused to provide a blood test at the hospital because he did not want people to know about his use of prescription medications. Kirk told me the only thing Prince complained about on the ride back home from the doctor's office was that he was suffering from anxiety and dehydration. 8 Please see full statement for further information. Note, there is a considerable amount of background noise during our conversation and at times it is hard to hear Kirk. 9 I then made contact with Michael Todd Schulenberg at the scene. Schulenberg is a doctor at North Memorial Clinic and saw Prince the prior day. I asked Schulenberg if someone from here requested his presence and he said no. Schulenberg said it was a complete coincidence and that he had showed up at Paisley Park to meet with Prince to discuss substance abuse treatment. 10 Schulenberg told me he has met with Prince twice at the North Memorial Clinic. Schulenberg reported the first time he met with Prince was April 7, 2016. In this visit, Schulenberg met Prince at Paisley Park and then transported him to the clinic. Schulenberg told me Prince's chief complaint on that day was that he generally was not feeling well and being nauseous. Schulenberg said Prince also complained of numbness/tingling in one of his legs and both of his hands. Schulenberg said on his visit yesterday with Prince the main complaint reported to him was that he was antsy. 11 I then was assigned to the North Gate entrance on Audubon Road and instructed to start a crime scene log. I kept a crime scene log beginning at 1027 hours until 1815 hours. 12 Note, I was relieved by Deputy Hastings from 1229 hours until 1250 hours. I also was relieved by Deputy McKirahan from 1422 hours until 1501 hours. 13 I will be filling out a crime scene log report. 14 I downloaded my conversation with Kirk to a CD. The CD was entered into evidence at the Chanhassen District Office. End of report. Deputy James Horvath, number 864. This page intentionally blank. Administrative Agency, Carver County Sheriffs. Report number 12 entered, April 22, 2016, 1550 by Officer, 864 J.H. Horvath, James. Incident hashtag, 201600012559. Carver County Sheriff's Office. Follow-up report. ICR, 160125599. Date of this report, April 22, 2016. Details. 1 On April 22, 2016, I conducted follow-up at the request of Detective P. Murphy at the Country Inn and Suites. Detective Murphy wanted me to inquire about surveillance video at the hotel. Detective P. Murphy was looking for surveillance video of the hotel area from April 20, 2016 at 2100 hours until 1000 hours on April 21, 2016. 2 I arrived at the hotel and spoke to the front desk manager. Valerie Cheryl Hicks advised me the hotel does not have exterior or interior surveillance cameras. I then drove around the Country Inn and Suites looking for outside surveillance cameras pointing towards the south side of the hotel. 3 I located one exterior camera at the Americana Bank, which is to the southwest of the Country Inn and Suites. The camera does not point towards the back entry of the hotel. The camera quality is also very grainy, making it hard to even see the back lot of the hotel, especially when zooming in. I collected the thumb drive of the surveillance video and placed it into evidence locker number 5 at the Chanhassen District Office. 4 I then made phone contact with the Hicks at approximately 1400 hours. I inquired if she could provide me any information on when Andrew Kornfeld checked in and out of the hotel. Hicks told me Kornfeld checked into room number 102 at 0845 hours on April 21, 2016. Hicks said Kornfeld was still listed as a guest of the hotel and had not checked out. Hicks told me she did not know if Kornfeld was at the hotel currently because she had not seen him all day, nor did she know what he looked like. Hicks did not know if Kornfeld had the hotel's continental breakfast after he checked in on April 21, 2016. 5 Detective P. Murphy requested I put this information into a follow-up report. End of report. Deputy Horvath, number 864. Revised 05/12. This page intentionally blank. Carver County Sheriff's Office. Follow-up report. ICR, 160125559. Date of this report, April 25, 16. Details. 1 The purpose of the second follow-up report is to provide additional and clarifying information to the first follow-up report that I submitted on April 23, 16. 2 I put on a pair of latex gloves when I arrived on the property when the incident was still a medical event. I removed my latex gloves after Nelson had been pronounced deceased, as I needed to use my cell phone to make notifications. 3 When I was asked to join the team of law enforcement officers conducting the protective sweep of the property, I put on a second pair of latex gloves. Paisley Park is a large, diverse property, and I did not enter every room of the property while assisting during the protective sweep. I did enter hallways, a residential suite of rooms, storage rooms, utility rooms, recording studios, public restrooms, event/concert halls, a bedroom not associated with the residential suite that is upstairs from the event/concert halls, mixed-use or unknown-use rooms, parking garage, and a tunnel located under the event/concert halls. There were several raised platforms in the event/concert halls which had decorative skirting made from cloth. I lifted the skirting on the platforms that I checked to see if anyone was underneath. I did not locate anyone. As stated in my previous report, I also assisted in the protective sweep of the exterior grounds surrounding the main building. I did not collect any evidence during the protective sweep. 4. I was tasked with purchasing food and beverages for officers working at the scene since processing was likely to take a considerable amount of time. Commander Chida accompanied me. According to the crime scene log, we left the scene at 1308 hours, and returned at 1340 hours. 5. Lieutenant Kit Elson asked that I retrieve his laptop from his office for his use in the command post vehicle and that I update the Chanhassen city manager as to the crowd and traffic control concerns surrounding the incident. According to the crime scene log, I left the scene at 1400 hours. And returned at 1517 hours. 6. When I was back at the scene, I was asked to show a sergeant from the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office Crime Scene Unit how to access the tunnel. After that, I also showed the HCSO sergeant how to access the roof, the parking garage, some storage rooms, and the bedroom that is located upstairs from the event/concert halls. The HCSO sergeant took photos of the spaces I showed him, but I did not collect any evidence while I accompanied him. 7. I completely cleared the scene at approximately 1745 hours. End of report. Sergeant J. Brunig, number 822. Revised 05/12. This page intentionally blank. Carver County Sheriff's Office. Follow-up report. ICR 160125559. Date of this report, April 26, 2016. Details. 1. On April 21, 16, at approximately 0955 hours, Sergeant Brunig called me on my cellular phone. Sergeant Brunig said that he was at Paisley Park Studios on a medical and that I needed to respond. I arrived at Paisley Park Studios, located at 7801 Audubon Road, Chanhassen, Minnesota at 1011 hours. I drove through the northwest gate and entered the main public entrance on the northeast corner of the building. I walked past the reception area and met with Sergeant Brunig. I saw what appeared to me to be Prince lying on the floor in front of the elevator on top of a rug. The body was fully clothed and lying supine and slightly leaning to the left with the feet towards the elevator. Sergeant Brunig confirmed it was Prince Rogers Nelson and that he was dead. 2. I stayed within visual of the body while Sergeant Brunig briefed me on who was present and what Sheriff's Office employees were en route to the scene. Sheriff Olson arrived on scene with Detectives Nelson and Wagner at 1020 hours. Sergeant Meyer arrived at 1023 hours. Sergeant Brunig briefed them on the situation. While I was standing near the body, there were 2 adult females and 2 adult males standing in the lobby. Also in the lobby was a gentleman I recognized as Kirk Johnson. I have communicated with Johnson in the past regarding concerts at Paisley Park for logistical purposes, parking, etc., and he was someone I knew to be the event coordinator and responsible for the building and grounds of Paisley Park. 3. Deputy Nucci arrived in the building at 1030 hours. Detective Murphy advised me he was escorting one of the adult males to another area of the building at 1034 hours. Detective Murphy, Detective Nucci, and Detective Nelson left the building with all of the parties from the lobby at 1039 hours. 4. I communicated with Chief Deputy Camarade after 1100 hours to brief him of the situation and advised him that the media was gathering on Audubon Road. We discussed what information would be released and a possible staging area for the media. 5. I left the studio at 1117 hours and addressed the media that had gathered on Audubon Road outside of the northwest gate. The media had numerous trucks, tents, etc. I gave my business card to the media that was present. I advised the media that they could park on McGlynn Drive and that they could stay on the boulevard on the west side of Audubon between McGlynn Drive and MN Highway 5. I advised the media that was present that the sheriff's office was conducting an investigation and that the crime lab and medical examiner were on the way. I also advised them to contact our office in Chaska for any further information. As I was walking away, one of the media stated something to the effect of the medical examiner and crime lab, so there has been a fatality. I responded, yes, and continued back in the building through the northwest entrance at 1121 hours. I resumed a position near the body. 6 Medical Examiner Straubel and the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, HCSO, crime lab arrived inside at 1126 hours. Lieutenant Turpid, from HCSO Crime Lab, had 3 deputies/sergeants with him. I maintained a position near the body while they were briefed. 7 I maintained a position near the body until 1345 hours. I left the building, but stayed within the grounds. I took a break from 1345 to 1415 hours on the west side of the building in an area I commonly refer to as the employee parking lot. Detective Nelson had returned to the scene and took my place near the body at 1345 hours. 8 From 1435 to 1442 hours I followed one of the HCSO Crime Lab deputies into an area near the front lobby. The area resembles a business center that would be in a hotel with several computers for guests and several small chairs. The HCSO deputy took pictures of the area and checked it. 9 The HCSO Crime Lab deputies were documenting the scene with photographs and also documenting the collection of evidence. A Carver County Sheriff's Office deputy would follow or escort the HCSO while photographing. After the photographs in the computer room, I followed HCSO Sergeant Magnuson while he photographed. Commander Chida assisted. The route was clockwise around the building, south on the main floor past the offices on the east side of the building into the main performance area, up a set of stairs on the southwest corner of the building into a large room that had a bed and nightstand in it. I saw on the nightstand, which was to the left of the bed, an open bag of Hall's cough drops and what appeared to be a tube of lipstick. I pointed this out to Sergeant Magnuson, but the items were not collected at that time. I then followed Sergeant Magnuson along the catwalk to the roof door. Sergeant Magnuson opened the door and looked out at the rooftop. I gazed out the door as well, seeing nothing remarkable. We proceeded down the center of the upper level and arrived to where the CCSO investigators were primarily concentrating their search in an area that had another bed in it. 10 The upstairs area is near the main entrance, so I proceeded down the stairs and met with Dr. Straubel. I assisted with preparations for transport of the body. I carried the body, which had now been bagged, in the elevator with Sheriff Olson, Sergeant Meyer, and Lieutenant Williams. We took the elevator downstairs and placed the body in the transport vehicle which had been parked in the underground garage. 11 I went outside and briefed with staff on how to create a traffic and pedestrian plan for the numerous people that had now gathered outside the fence. I cleared the scene and left in my vehicle at 1810 hours. 12 My times for this report were taken by verifying on my iPhone and then recording the times. I did not wear gloves while escorting Sergeant Magnuson, and I did not touch anything. The only time I touched anything was when I used the restroom south of the main lobby after it had been cleared by investigations and the crime lab. End of report. Lieutenant Eric Kit Elson, number 804. April 26, 16. This page intentionally blank. Carver County Sheriff's Office. Follow-up report. ICR, 201-601-2559. Date of this report, April 22, 2016. Details. 1 On April 21, 2016 at about 0900 hours, I received a telephone call from Sergeant Brunig who said that he needed investigative assistance at 7801 Audubon Drive in Chanhassen. He said that the Prince Rogers Nelson was deceased. He said that there were several people at the residence that needed to be interviewed. I asked him to start a crime scene log of people entering and leaving the crime scene. 2 I looked for Sheriff Olson but was unable to find him. I found Chief Deputy Kamerad and told him what I had learned. He located Sheriff Olson and we spoke for a minute. I requested that a crime lab assist us in processing the death and we settled on the Hennepin County Crime Lab. 3. I gathered the investigators that were available and we had a short briefing. I spoke to the medical examiner, Dr. Quinn Strobel, by telephone, and explained that I was in need of her personal services at the death scene. She said she would be responding and would bring one other person from her office with her. 4. I drove to the residence which doubles as a recording studio for the musical artist Prince. I arrived and parked my car in front of the studio. It was later moved to the west side. I brought a box of rubber gloves from my car and entered the front doors after putting on a pair of rubber gloves. I was met by Sergeant Brunig, who briefed me. I asked about the interior and if it had been searched for subjects and was told it had not. 5. I sent Deputies Murphy, Nucci, and Nelson to the Chanhassen District Office to do interviews with some of the first people to arrive and find Prince deceased that morning. 6. Sergeant Brunig, Deputy Wagner, and I took Kirk Anthony Johnson with us to open the doors and guide us through the search. Johnson was the chief of security and close associate of Prince. Johnson said that no one lived in the building except Prince. Johnson had knowledge of the studio and apartment we were searching. We searched the interior in areas that could hold a subject and did not open anything that was not capable of concealing a human being. We did not locate anyone inside. 7. There was one room in the basement that we were unable to access. Johnson said it was a vault that no one had been in and he did not know where the keys to the locked door were at. Several times during the search and processing of the building, I tried keys that were found and was unable to open this door. The door is directly in front of the basement elevator when standing inside the elevator. The door is purple in color and has the Prince symbol on it. The door was never opened and the contents of that room remain unknown. 8. I returned to the front of the building and asked Deputy Wagner to interview Johnson. 9. I saw that Lieutenant Kit Elson had appeared to have remained near the body of Prince during our search. I had observed Prince lying on the floor when I entered the building. The body was lying in front of the elevator door on the ground floor. This elevator is about 40 feet south of the front door, on the west side of the hallway. There is a stairway leading up to the second floor and the elevator is tucked under the stairway. This leaves a small covered waiting type area outside the elevator doors. This area is where the body of Prince laid. 10. I saw that Prince was lying on his back with his left arm slightly extended, palm up. I saw he was wearing a black knit type cap that was slightly off his head, a black Under Armour brand zip-up light jacket, black nylon type pants, blue color watch band on his right wrist, and black socks. I saw 2 white color medical patches on the left arm and right leg. I did not see any signs of a struggle or any obvious trauma on the body. I did not move or touch the body, only observed it. 11. I usually take snapshots with my issue cellular telephone at death scenes to preserve images as they are when I arrive. I did not do this due to the sensitivity of this investigation. No one else took photos that I am aware of except the Hennepin County Crime Lab. I asked the investigative staff when doing an after-action brief if they had any cell phone photos and no one did. 12. The body of Prince was lying on top of a multicolored rug. While searching the building I saw another rug exactly like this rug outside the elevator door on the landing upstairs. 13. I was called by Deputy Murphy, who said that in his interview with one of the subjects he found out that Prince may have been suffering from an addiction to pain medication. Deputy Murphy said one of the subjects he interviewed had been at the residence to try to enroll Prince in a recovery program and had possibly some pain medication in a backpack he had been carrying. Based on this information I asked Deputy Murphy to draft a search warrant for the building to look for evidence of pain medications and prescriptions. 14. I saw that the Hennepin County Crime Lab had arrived with 3 technicians, Sergeant Kevin Schwartz, Sergeant Shane Magnuson, and Deputy Sarah Buck, and Lieutenant Todd Turpit. I coordinated our response to searching the living quarters between the 2 agencies. I informed Sheriff Olson and the rest of the law enforcement that this was the plan and it would be about 2 hours before we were ready to serve the search warrant. 15. I asked if anyone had made a complete check of the exterior of the building and was told it had not been done. I walked one way around the building and Sergeant Brunig went the other. We met in the back and did not find anything to note. 16. I noticed that the temperature in entrance area we were in was very warm. I spoke to Johnson about the thermostats and he explained they were located periodically on the east wall of the hallway. Johnson went with me to the first one and showed me how to remove the cover and spin the dial under it to bring the temperature down. I asked Hennepin County Sergeant Magnuson to photograph the thermostats. I saw that they were set at 75 degrees and the temperature in the building was reading at 72 degrees. I turned all of the thermostats in the entrance hallway down to 60 degrees. I asked one of the Hennepin County deputies to turn off the space heater in the kitchen area to add to reducing the temperature. I checked later and saw that the heater was off. 17. I spoke with Dr. Straubel when she arrived and we made a plan for the removal of Prince to her care after the scene had been processed. 18. The next of kin arrived and asked to be taken to the remains of Prince. I explained that I would make sure they had a chance to be with Prince before he was removed but that the processing of the scene had to occur first. 19. I waited in the entry with others while the search warrant was written and signed. See Deputies Nucci and Murphy's reports. 20. I spoke to Deputy Murphy by telephone. He said that the assistant to Prince, Marone Becour, had declined to give a statement and wanted to leave. I told him to give her a ride to her room at the county suites inn where she stayed and then bring her back to the studios. 21. Deputy Nelson called me and said that he had been waiting for Becour to come back and she never returned. He said he tried to call her and knocked on the door but she did not answer. I told him to return to assist us. 22. When the warrant was signed I saw the Hennepin Crime Lab process the area and the body of Prince. I asked that swabs of Prince's hands and neck be taken to allow the family to have contact with Prince. I told Dr. Straubel that we would be ready for the transport van to come and take Prince away. 23. The interior of the elevator was constructed of a mostly silver color metal, possibly stainless steel. I saw on the southeast wall of the elevator under the handrail that there was a fluid splashed on the wall. I made a mental note to have this area photographed and a swab taken of the substance on the wall. 24. I received a telephone call from Deputy Murphy that the search warrant was signed and he was on his way to assist us. The investigators on scene began to search the building. 25. I spoke to the family and explained that they would be allowed very soon to be with Prince. When I was finished I received a blanket from Lieutenant Kit Elson and I covered all but the left hand of Prince at the sister's request. The family went to the body of Prince and eventually several asked to see his face. I uncovered the face after some had the chance to turn away. When the family was done I escorted them back outside. 26. I helped them load Prince inside the body bag and watched the seal put on the zipper. I assisted in carrying the body bag containing Prince, 4 of us carried him, into the elevator and to the basement garage. I lifted the bag onto a stretcher and saw him secured in place. There had been a second transport van that had left the building as a decoy prior to us bringing Prince to the garage. Kat from the ME's office accompanied Prince in the transport van to their office. 27. I rejoined the investigative staff that was searching the living area of the building. I was called to a room on the northeast side of the building by Deputy Wagner. I saw this room contained items that appear make this area some sort of a dressing room. Deputy Wagner pointed out a jewelry box that she had opened. She showed me a number of white pills that were without a prescription bottle. The inscriptions on the pills were red and Dr. Straubel used her cell phone to find that they appear to be a controlled substance general prescribed for pain. I saw that the pills were being collected as evidence. 28. I walked through the living area this time with an eye out for items that could be important to this investigation. 29. I went into a doorway that had a sign on the side asking that only authorized personnel were allowed. The room I entered appeared to be a private receiving/dressing room with a bed on the north side of the room. There were couches and chairs in this room with an open suitcase of beauty products. 30 I went into the next room attached to this and which was Prince's bedroom according to Johnson when I had searched for subjects earlier. I did not disturb anything as I looked around. I saw a bed on the south side of the room and the bedding was disturbed. It appeared that whoever slept in the bed entered and left the bed from the west side. Some of the bedding was pulled onto the floor. I saw a white color pill on the floor in a fold of the bedding that appeared similar to the pills Deputy Wagner showed me in the dressing room. I pointed this out to Deputy Nelson and continued to look at the scene. 31 I saw an Apple brand laptop computer sitting on the dresser in Prince's bedroom. This dresser was on the east wall. I saw a charger cord for the computer but did not see any cell phones or cell phone equipment. 32 I did not see anything that was readily apparent as evidence in my survey of the interior of the building. When I returned I was directed to the upper floor and a room that appeared to be an office or business type area. This room was on the east side of the upstairs hallway and toward the north side of the building. Deputy Wagner showed me a white envelope that contained a large number of $100 bills. These bills were banded together with a paper wrapper. I did not count the bills or any other money found at the scene. Sheriff Olson had spoken to one of the attorneys that had arrived and represented the business that Prince Nelson conducted. Sheriff Olson and the attorney agreed that we would collect any cash and place it into one of the file drawers in the room that appeared to serve as an office. These two file drawers are capable of locking and the keys were in the locks. I found a brown evidence envelope and retraced my steps, gathering any cash that the investigations team had uncovered. The area's currency was located in were the bedroom, the sitting room attached to the bedroom, the office area, and the room used as a makeup and bathing area. I put the currency in the drawer and Hennepin County Sergeant Schwartz took photos of the envelope and the drawer. I locked the drawer and gave the key to Sheriff Olson who gave it to the attorney. 33 I later was rechecking the living areas and saw that the kitchen had some currency in small bills lying on the counter next to the door. I gathered this currency and took it up to the office. I put it in the other drawer and locked it inside. Hennepin County Sergeant Schwartz took photos of this drawer and the key missing. I turned the key over to Sheriff Olson who gave this one to the attorney as well. 34 I spoke with Deputy Wagner about the pills that had been found in the bedroom and the room just outside the bedroom. The pills, the pill bottles, and the pills from the dressing room, were all seized and inventoried on the search warrant receipt. Dr. Strobel was present when the pills were discovered and inventoried. 35 Sheriff Olson told me that one of the attorneys who had arrived was in charge of the estate details. Mr. Gary Hansen was eventually given a copy of the search warrant receipt along with a copy of the search warrant. 36 I spoke with the crime scene team and they photographed the entire property again prior to our leaving to show the interior as we were leaving it. They also said that they were going to handle the photographs differently than their standard procedures. They said that a copy of the video and the photos would be delivered by Lieutenant Turpit the next day and that their reports were locked down so no one else could read them. 37 The assistant to Prince, Marone Becour, came back and spoke to Commander Chida, who brought her to me. She asked that she be able to enter and retrieve her keys. I escorted her to the west side of the studios and on a desk was a set of black color keys she said were hers. She described them prior to me seeing the keys so I felt assured this was something that was hers. I asked her where she stayed when she did not travel home and she said she had never stayed at the residence overnight. She said she went to the hotel if she was too tired to travel home. She took the keys and I escorted her out of the building. 38 I had a roundtable discussion with my staff and we turned the building over to attorney Gary Hansen and his partner. 39 I checked to see that preservation letters and evidence were being processed. I spoke to the command staff and we made a plan for the next day. I detailed Deputies Nelson and Nucci to attend the autopsy when it was conducted by the me in Anoka County. 40 April 22, 2016. I fielded ideas and thoughts about the death investigation. I assigned Deputy Nelson to gather the medical records from Illinois where Prince Nelson had made an emergency in his plane and the ones from the hospitals on our area. We discussed the prescription monitoring program, PMP, and I asked Deputy Wagner to start writing search warrants for the records of the people on the staff that surrounded Prince Nelson. 41 I discussed the sealing of the search warrant that had served on the residence of Prince Nelson, and a plan was made to see that this happened. 42 I called and discussed the processing of the pill bottles that had been seized. After some discussions and information sharing, I learned that the method of communication between Nelson and his staff was the telephone or emails. I regretted not taking the computer by the bedside of Nelson, as I believed that this contained conversations between his staff and Nelson about medications possibly. I directed Deputy Wagner to write a search warrant for the computer that we had not seized. 43 I learned that the substance on the wall of the elevator at the recording studio had been photographed but had not been swabbed. 44 On April 25, 2016 at about 1400 hours, I drove to Paisley Park and we were allowed to enter the grounds by the security staff. I explained why we were there and some telephone calls were made. I spoke to the former power of attorney for Prince, who said all inquiries were being handled by attorney Gary Hansen. I asked that we be allowed inside the residence to swab the elevator and was told that Hansen was able to arrange this. I knew that Deputy Wagner, who was with me, had a signed search warrant in her possession for the computer that had been by the bed of Prince. I was unable to get any answers to Hansen by telephone and the security staff asked us to leave. I left without serving the warrant or letting anyone know we had a warrant. 45 When I was back at the office, I received a telephone call from Gary Hansen. He said he was at the airport and was unable to take my call. I explained I needed to have the wall swabbed and he agreed to meet me at Paisley Park at about 1530 hours the next day. 46 On April 26, 2016 at 1530 hours, I went back to Paisley Park with Deputy Wagner and Deputy Stahn. I eventually met Gary Hansen and another attorney who was with him. See Deputy Wagner's report. I explained that there was some substance on the wall of the elevator that we needed to swab as this had been neglected. He took us to the front doors and I saw that Marone Becour had opened the doors for him. I sent Deputy Stahn to do the swab of the elevator and asked to meet with Hansen. We went into the office area that is the first door inside the front entrance on the west side. I explained to Hansen that we needed the computer. I offered him the option of giving us consent and voluntarily giving me the computer or asking me to serve the search warrant. We discussed the advantages to both alternatives for the estate and he asked for some time to consult. I went to the couches in the front area of the entrance and waited with Deputy Wagner. 47 Hansen told me that he would sign the consent form and give us the computer that was in an office on the first floor. He signed consent to search form that Deputy Wagner filled out, and on the form was written that the estate was able to view the information with us when we analyzed it. See the form as it is attached to this report. 48 Hansen had to call a locksmith to open the locked office the computer was in. I left Deputies Stahn and Wagner remained to collect the device. I received a message later that said the computer was in our custody. 49 I spoke to medical examiner Dr. Strobel and asked that the blood sample that was taken from Prince Nelson the night before his death be analyzed for toxicology to compare with the sample taken at autopsy. 50 On April 29, 2016, I spoke to BCA agents Chris Olson and Scott Mueller about doing computer analysis on the laptop that was obtained. They agreed that they would make arrangements to have their best forensic computer technician do the analysis. 51 On May 3, 2106, I was told that our office would partner with the DEA in determining where the controlled substances came from and that a determination on what charges would be filed and who would charge them would be made when the investigation was complete. I was told that a meeting was going to be set up for May 4, 2016 at about 1130 hours with the U.S. Attorney and the DEA. 52 On May 4, 2016 I directed Deputy Wagner to print several pictures of the scene and the body of Prince Nelson as we found Paisley Park on April 21, 2016. The disc of photos was in the care of Deputy Wagner with instructions to not allow anyone to print copies without my permission. I number the photos and brought them to the meeting at 1130 hours. 53 I gave a briefing to the guests that Sheriff Olson had invited and passed the photographs around. I received the photos as they were done being viewed and later double-checked the correct number were present, and I personally placed them in the shredder for destruction. At this meeting it was decided that the DEA and our office would work together in two investigations that we knew would touch often. The death investigation into Prince Nelson's death would be one of our priorities, and the diversion of the controlled prescriptions would be the other, shared by us and the DEA. We agreed to meet at DEA headquarters on May 5, 2016 to iron out some of the details. I explained that we had the computer that had been by the bedside of Prince Nelson, and I had arranged for the BCA to analyze it and do laboratory work on the pill containers that we had seized from Paisley Park. I was told that was fine and to handle this as we would normally by DEA. Supervisor John Rickley. 54 On May 5, 2016 at about 0830 hours, I met BCA agent Chris Olson at our office, and he took the computer that we had obtained from Prince Nelson's bedside and took it to BCA for analysis. 55 At about 1300 hours, Deputies Nelson and Wagner went with me to the Minneapolis DEA headquarters. We were shown around and filled out some paperwork to assist us in working with DEA. A list of priorities was set out and information was exchanged. DEA Task Force Supervisor John Rickley asked that I get the computer back from BCA, and they would have a DEA computer specialist come to our office to image the computer under the search warrant we had already obtained. 56 I called BCA Supervisor Scott Mueller, who understood and made arrangements for us to pick the computer back up. 57 Deputies Wagner and Nelson went with me to BCA headquarters, and Deputy Wagner received the computer from Special Agent Olson. The computer was brought back to our office and entered into evidence again. 58 On May 6, 2016, the computer from Prince Nelson's bedroom was imaged in our lab by the DEA, and 3 copies were made. 2 copies went with the DEA and 1 went into our evidence room. 59 On May 7, 2016 I received a call from BCA Special Agent Olson, who said the lab analysis of the containers given to them was done. He said there were prints suitable for comparison and DNA profiles found. See lab report from BCA. 60 On May 9, 0216. At about 0930 hours, I received a telephone call from the medical examiner Dr. Strobel. She said that the toxicology results were back from the lab on Prince Nelson's specimens. She said there were levels of prescription medications, hydrocodone, in the urine but none in the blood. She said the blood contained a high level of the drug fentanyl. She said the count was 67.8 mg per liter of blood. In way of reference, she said a cancer patient with a fentanyl patch on would change the patch every 3 hours and have a blood level of about 3 to 5 mg per liter of blood. 61 I spoke to Chief Deputy Camerot and Sheriff Olson about the news from the blood analysis. I explained that we needed to return to Paisley Park and search the building again looking for items that could contain the drug fentanyl. I met with Deputies Nelson and Wagner about the information, and I asked Deputy Wagner to begin a search warrant for returning to Paisley Park. We informed our partners at DEA and the search warrant was obtained in federal court. 62 On May 10, 2016 a search warrant was obtained and the DEA and our deputies briefed at 1530 hours. Shortly after 1600 hours we were notified that the search warrant had been signed. Sheriff Olson made arrangements for a representative from Bremer Bank, the appointed administrator of the estate, to meet us and let us in the building. 63 A caravan of people and cars went to the Paisley Park complex. We entered the guarded gates and waited for the person with the keys to arrive. The keys arrived and I entered the building at 1744 hours. 64 We searched the building until about 0030 hours, and then left uniformed sheriff's office staff on site for the rest of the night, with plans to return the next day at 0900 hours. 65 On May 11, 2016 at about 0900 hours, we returned to finish the search of the building. We were unable to get into the vault in the basement without damaging it. An arrangement was worked out with Bremer Bank to have sheriff office staff remain on site and outside the locked building until an expert could be brought in to open the vault. The bank had concerns that the vault contained numerous valuable recordings that could be damaged by unwanted exposure from outside the vault. When everything was searched except the vault, we took the evidence that had been collected and left. 66 On May 12, 2016 at about 1030 hours, I spoke to Dr. Straubel by telephone. She told me that the blood sample taken the night before Prince Nelson died, April 20, 2016, had no fentanyl in it. She asked about nasal sprays at the scene, as one of the current methods of abusing fentanyl is to snort it. I told her that there were some nasal sprays and eye drops at the scene. 67 On May 13, 2016 I received a telephone call from DEA Agent Rickley. He said that Bremer Bank was flying in a specialist to open the vault and he would be at Paisley Park on May 15, 2016 at about 1700 hours. 68 On May 15, 2016 at about 1700 hours, I arrived at Paisley Park. There were numerous people present from the bank and a specialist who was going to open the vault and then put it back together so that the interior was secure. 69 I was present when the vault door was breached and slightly opened. I saw the time as about 1910 hours. I watched as Deputy Wagner took photos of the interior of the vault. We searched the vault and did not find anything of evidentiary value. I found 6 zippered bank bags in a white garbage bag on a shelf in the northwest corner of the vault. One of the bags had the words opium written on it. I looked in the bags and saw only cash of different denominations. The bag that said opium on it, I was unable to get the zipper to open. I used my pocket knife to slit the seam at the bottom of the bag to look inside. I saw only cash in the bag. All 6 of the bags were given by Agent Rickley to the Bremer Bank personnel. To my knowledge, the cash was never counted by any law enforcement at the scene. 70 I saw Deputy Wagner take photos of the vault and the money bags on the shelf inside the vault as we left the interior. According to my watch, the time we exited was about 1938 hours. 71 On May 17, 2016 I spoke to BCA Supervisor Scott Mueller and made preliminary arraignments for the evidence we had obtained at Paisley Park to be analyzed for controlled substances including fentanyl. See Deputy Wagner's report for the in-depth description of the transfer of the evidence to the BCA. 72 I had several conversations with Dr. Straubel about a chemical analysis of the stomach fluids found and collected in the autopsy. Dr. Straubel told me that the stomach acid would be expected to have some low levels of fentanyl in it because there was a significant amount in the body/bloodstream. I asked Dr. Straubel to send the contents to the lab anyway to see what the levels were, as I felt they would be a significant factor. 73 On May 23, 2016 at about 0800 hours, I spoke to Dr. Straubel by telephone. She said she had the results of the chemical analysis of the stomach fluids back for the lab. She said that the extremely high level of fentanyl in the stomach contents left no doubt the drug was ingested orally by Prince in pill form. 74 I met with Sheriff Olson and Chief Deputy Kimura to let them know the information Dr. Straubel had given me. I then told the investigators this information. End of report. Sergeant DeWitt Meyer, number 813.